Hello, this is Sebastian, and we're going to read some Trello user feedback today. We'll take a look at some of the app reviews users have left for the Trello Android application. Above my head on the screen, you can see an Android emulator running the Trello app. If you're not familiar with it, definitely check it out. It's a great little application that you can use to make lists, add cards to those lists, and help keep your life organized. I don't work for Trello. I'm not affiliated with Trello in any way. I just enjoy looking at some of their app reviews since I'm an avid user, and working in the product and mobile app and engineering space. It's always interesting to see what users are commenting about on other applications. So on the left of my screen, you can see a review from Joshua Beardsley. This user left a 1-star rating from November 3rd. This is information from the Google Play Store. And below that, you can see some different categories of issues that we found or feature requests that we found for Trello reviews. And then below that, we've seen some text. So what I'm going to do for the next 30 minutes is read through some of these reviews. Some of them are pretty funny. Some of them are interesting in terms of what users are complaining about or trying to decipher what users are complaining about. And we'll go from there. We'll probably get through maybe 5 or 10 reviews, depending on how complicated they are. And by the end of this stream, in the next 30 minutes, the goal will just be to see what's out there, see what users are talking about for the Trello application. And I'm really curious for anybody else that joins for this channel, if they have any ideas of any other apps I should take a look at, or any other feedback that they're interested in, let me know. I'll also be monitoring. I made a post to the product management Reddit channel, and I'll be monitoring that every couple minutes to see if anybody has any ideas or feedback in terms of what I'm doing. So let's get started. I'll switch my screen over here on my computer to the board. Okay, so we have this 1-star review from Joshua. And Joshua says, after getting a new smartphone, I tried to log into my Trello account. Trello reset my password without permission and sent an email saying they did this because of suspicious activity. You don't ever reset passwords without permission. I'm adding a little emphasis to that sentence. You can ask for confirmation. You can lock the account until it's verified, but you can't just reset it. A ridiculous way to treat your users who need to access the app. Interesting. So this is a security-related issue that the user's complaining about. And I guess the user, was expecting, they got this new smartphone from the store, or they ordered online, they're setting it up. It usually takes a couple hours to set up a phone. And it sounds like this user really likes the Trello application, but when they went to go install it on their new smartphone, Trello said, hey, this is wrong. Like this could be an unauthorized user trying to access the account. And if the user knows the username and password for the account and they enter it, I could see valid reason for the user wanting to say, this is actually me. Maybe you can notify me. You'll often see that for other applications. You'll get an email if you log in from a new device, and it'll say, just letting you know, we saw this new login from this new device. And the fact that they did reset the password, I don't think that's standard in terms of the applications that I'm used to using. And maybe there's some criteria that the Trello team has internally in terms of how to flag whether we simply notify the user that there's a new login, or we actually reset the device completely, or reset the password completely. And I can understand the user's frustration in this regard. So let's try to help this out. So what do we need to do? We need to think about, how do we analyze or read this review? And I don't think we've seen any reviews related to this specific issue. We've seen issues related to users not being able to log in. That could come into play here. We could fit this review into a general login issue, but it might be something that's a little bit more specific than that. And I would also imagine this is probably a pretty rare feature, but a really rare use case or an occurrence. But we would want to make sure that if a user does get a new phone, that they get the chance to actually set it up and use it properly with Trello. So let's think about this. So what phrases and words here are most helpful? And so essentially, I'm just going to go through this review and just tag the portion that's helpful. And it could be the entire review. In this case, I think everything's pretty relevant. The user gives a lot of information in terms of what they're expecting. And I'm going to make a new issue. So I'm going to go into my backend over here and make a new issue called maybe locked out. And you can't see this screen. I don't have a cool screen to show my backend in. I'm literally modifying a database. So user, I guess what would be this issue called? This would be like password reset, locked out. I think maybe password reset automatically. And then the user expects the password, user expects when logging in from a new device to not reset password. And this is legitimate, right? Like that's pretty annoying for the user when they log into a new device. You save these passwords so you can log into them from different devices, right? That's what you save them for. And the fact that it's reset because it's suspicious, that's a tough one. So I made this new issue on my back end. I'm just going to refresh this screen. And I did reduce the font size on this screen. This is the normal font size. I typically try to enlarge it a little bit to make it easier to read. But for some of these longer reviews, it does kind of get a little disorganized to make the text that big. So let's mark this as this new reset password issue. Oops. I guess this is reset password. Save these changes. And I'll go in, and since the reviewer left only 1 star, that means that if the Trello team were to fix this issue for this user, theoretically they would gain 4 stars back. So I also mark this as, an issue that down below over here, I just updated this in the back end, they lost 4 stars. And so we'll see if we get into an issue that has multiple problems, we can actually allocate lost stars to each one of those components. And this is just something I do in my own internal rating system. I'm curious, there's a lot of different ways to do this, so I'm just curious how folks in product side and engineering side tend to typically think about how do they attribute like a 1-star review with various items. So that's definitely something that I'd like to hear back from y'all if you go through the trouble of reading your user feedback. How do you think about that? So let's go to the next review, and this is from Jane Canas, and they give a 5-star review. So far, I'm enjoying the management of my products using this app. The reminders I set give me time to complete a task before the due date. I'm using this to store relevant docs to help me run the same project each year. And this is great. This is a good 5-star review. And I'll probably highlight this one as a review that I think is worthy of just highlighting for the Trello team as saying like, the users really like the application. They really like these features. And I like doing that too, in terms of saying this is a fun review. Take a look at this one to balance out all the other negative reviews you have to see. And the number of negative reviews is pretty small. I think the latest rating for the Trello app was 4-point-something stars. So that's less than 20% of your reviews that are negative. Most of them are 5 stars. So this is from Nazrul Hoki. And this is a 5-star review. Amazing app, syncs instantly and works flawlessly. The web app and the mobile app is just the same with all the functionality. Just amazing and super user-friendly. That's interesting that this user pointed out that the web and mobile app is just the same with just the same functionality, because that's not necessarily the case if we've been reading some of the other reviews that we've done previously. And so this user is able to take a look at the application and not see the difference between mobile and web, especially related to power-ups. And so that's something to keep in mind, that probably for the majority of users, they can't tell the difference. It's for the ones that are complaining and are really adamant and passionate about the application that maybe they can see the differences between mobile and web. So I'm taking a look at the Reddit comments, and a user named Applied Math just mentioned to check out on Asana. So I guess the user's mentioning like how they're reading the reviews. And I've never used, or maybe they're mentioning I should take a look at Asana. I assume for user feedback, they're mentioning that they use Asana. And I haven't used Asana that much. I've used Product Board. I love AppBot. I use AppBot a lot. What else have I used for managing user feedback? A lot of Excel sheets. But I'll definitely take a look at Asana. Maybe for the next review or the next stream, I can kind of show off some of the different tools. Maybe that's a good idea for like next week. We can show like different like tools that we use to read user feedback. Because there's a lot of really great ones out there. So I'm just making a note. And if the user did mention like they want me to take a look at Asana, the app, for the reviews, also keep that in mind. So thank you for the comment, Reddit user, and I'll keep that in mind. If anybody else has anything else, head over to the product management Reddit channel, leave a comment, and I'll be here for the next 15, 20 minutes looking through some more reviews, but also looking at what else is interesting to you. What else should I stream about? So I've done this for a number of days now, looking at the Trello application, but I'm sure there's other stuff that you're interested in or want to talk about. So let's go to the next review. And this is a 4-star review from Robert Lucina. And Robert mentions, useful app, used to plan holidays and also use it for my shopping lists. And this is a classic case of the user gives you positive feedback, but they give you 4 stars. So in cases like this, I'll want to mark this as missing stars. So that means that the user left less than 5 stars. And we really want the user to leave 5 stars, because anything less than 5 stars lowers our overall rating. And to be honest, I'm really curious like why users leave a 4-star rating if they have very positive comments. Like maybe they're expecting a more ideal experience, but at the same time, like they know. Like I think most users. That's an assumption I have. I assume most users know that if they leave less than 5 stars, the developer wants to improve, but they're not necessarily telling the user how to improve, right? And so this is something that I'd probably want to follow back up with this user. You can reply, if this is a comment from like in-app feedback or email, you'd reply back to them. If it was on the App Store or Google Play, you probably want to reply to this user and see like, hey, how can we make that experience a 5-star experience? So that's what I marked that as, and losing a 1 star because of that. So we'll go to the next review, and this is from the user Dime Z Chica. Might be pronouncing that wrong. 5 stars. Love it. Amazing interface. Very simple to use and organized business. Great calendar feature too. Okay, that's a classic 5-star rating. Go on to the next one. It's not too much to dig into on that. Well, I take that back. There are certain things that you might want to dig into 5-star reviews, especially we had a previous analysis where we looked at mining text for keywords for the App Store. the user mentioned calendar, right? Obviously, the Trello review has the keyword calendar in their application. That might be something that you want to use if you see a lot of 5-star reviews mentioning a specific item. I know the algorithms for the App Store and then for Google Play help elevate that if somebody's searching for your app. But you probably also want to include that in your your keyword specifically if you aren't already. So this is Vinay Mehta. Give a 5-star review, excellent. So we'll go on to the next review. Take a quick look back at Reddit, see if anything else. No other comments. Keep the comments coming. And even if I'm not live streaming, I definitely read the comments afterwards too. So this is a next review, reloading the page. On EA Meta, said excellent. What was the previous one? Vinay Mehta said excellent. So 2 5-star reviews in a row with the same text. I thought had accidentally reloaded the same page. Okay. It's kind of interesting to see 2 5-stars, but with the same words. But this next one is from Scott Biz, and Scott Biz gave this a 1-star review. And let's see, what Scott's having trouble with. I hate apps that will not allow you to view the password you're currently entering. Trello is one of those apps. I'm a big man and have large fingers. So Scott has very large thumbs and maybe a very small phone, comically undersized phone. And Scott's saying, I can easily tap 2 things at one time. WTH, Trello. Allow users who are confident in their own secure location to view their own password. It is extremely frustrating to enter password several times that is correct, only be denied access. How difficult or insecure it is to code the little icon to view the password. Okay, this is a security issue, right? And as a mobile developer, I know there's different best practices for displaying password. And I've worked in applications where we did implement this icon, and I actually found as a user, this application was this feature is helpful, right? Especially if you have an older phone, Android phone, like the keyboard's lagging. I can understand. I have pretty small fingers, but when I'm using my phone, I'm not Scott with gigantic, clown size hands, but I have trouble too, especially when you're an older phone, the keyboard's laggy, the autocorrect on your keyboard for passwords is horrible. Like that's the worst thing ever, right? And this user feels that frustration. So I could see a legitimate concern from the user to be able to add this feature. And if we go to, I'll go to the app over here. So I'm gonna go to the Trello application, and let's see if I can log out. And just to show you what this user is talking about if you're not aware. So I'll go to log out. It's logging me out. It's taking a while. Did it log me out? Okay, finally. So we're going to log in. And so this user is expecting when they type in, scott@gmail.com, they're expecting to see when you type in a password here that you can view that password. And that's pretty common for I think maybe more on iOS applications. You probably see that more often. I think on Android applications that it's actually less common to see that. And I'm also surprised this is not like a built-in behavior into the platform, at least as a mobile developer from my understanding so far. I would really expect to have like the show password button be viewable, but maybe I'd assume Android and Apple might not want to encourage that, right? For users to actually see that password. I usually use single sign-on, so I usually use Google. I don't actually have to enter my password. I have a password manager, but in this case, Scott, it doesn't sound like Scott has that, and Scott's pretty frustrated. So how do we analyze or how do we read this review? And from all of the previous items that we have over here in this legend up above, I don't think anything really correlates to what this user is having trouble with. I think this could be a new issue entirely. So let's make a new issue. So I'm going to go into my backend, and I'm going to add a new issue. So in this case, this will be a feature request, right? So this is show password button, and this will be user wishes to show the password on the login screen to confirm it is valid. So I'm entering this into the backend. This is the issue, and I'll enter this tag label as show password, and I'll refresh the screen right here really fast, and you guys should see it in a second. So give that 1 second. Cool. And so show password's down here, and I think the entire review is related to show password. And we'll mark it as such. The user left 1 star, which is pretty dramatic, you would think. Like, maybe this is like how many times do they have to actually enter their password, which could be another, right? Like, why does this user have to enter their password so often? You should probably only have to enter it maybe once. But yeah, in this case, made Scott upset. So that's another thing too. So like, how do you handle this? This is an engineering problem. This is a UX problem. This is a security issue. Can you not? This is completely unactionable at all, and you'll never be able to recuperate the 4 stars. Those are all things that you have to take into consideration when dealing with this. But the first level analysis is the actual tagging. So the first level, we read through what are the problems, and then we see how can we make this easier for the user. Okay, we'll go to the next issue. And I'll take a quick look at Reddit to see if there's any other comments from folks out there. No other comments as of yet, but another 10 minutes to get them in before I sign off. And happy to respond in the comments afterwards as well. So this is from Romulo Takauka. I'm sorry, I butchered that name. I should be able to pronounce that, but I can't. I need to learn. And this is a 5-star review, and this user says, it's an amazing app. I'm loving it. I just have one question. Is it possible to implement a dark mode? Would you guys do it for me? Lol, thank you so much. And this is kind of cute in terms of a review. The user's asking, will you do it for me? As in, no other user has asked for this, but a number of users have asked for this. The user's pretty happy with the product. They say it's an amazing app, but this is a feature request for sure. So what do we do with this? We tag this as a dark mode request, but the app hasn't lost any stars, and that's ideally what you want. You ideally want bugs and feature requests with 5-star reviews because everything's so amazing and it's just so minor. Maybe the user just needs a little bit of extra help, and that could be part of Trello's marketing too. Like, they market their app as friendly, simple, and maybe that correlates to how the users respond in the feedback section. I don't know. I've worked at companies where maybe the brand wasn't as friendly. Maybe it was a little bit more high class, and then the users definitely didn't respond as in kind as maybe you see something like that there. So the marketing could have an influence on that type of response. This is from Grady. Grady has left a 3-star review, and Grady says, Trello has a separate calendar for each project. No single calendar to view dates from all projects. Forces you to bounce from calendar to calendar and try to remember what is due on any given day. A mess. Ooh. And this is interesting. I signed out of the application. Hopefully I can sign back in. I'll try to with single sign-on without having to enter in my password. Looks like that worked. And so let's go see, no boards yet. Okay. It's interesting. Okay, it loaded up. And then we'll go to, let's go to, I made this test one right here. And I'm curious if you can actually see a calendar in here. I don't know if you can. Like I've never used the calendar in the Trello application, so that's why this review is just like kind of interesting for me. Maybe somebody else is much more familiar with that functionality. And I know you can set due dates. And this user says Trello has a separate calendar for each project. Members, activities. Like this is something I'd love to see, like what that means. So I'm gonna do a quick Google search in another window that you can't see. I'm gonna type in Trello Android calendar. So using Trello with the Google Calendar. So I'm reading this out loud. If you use Google Calendar, you can integrate Trello's boards with the Google Calendar. So I guess you can make a different feed for each project, but I didn't know you can actually do that from the mobile app. So I'm looking here in the mobile app, and there's a board link, board settings, commenting. Yeah, I don't, in the mobile app, I'm not sure if there's anything related to being able to use it with the calendar. Maybe they use it on the web, and then that's where they got the calendar link, and then each project creates a different calendar, and maybe this user wants to see all of the calendar updates on a single calendar for all their projects. So maybe this isn't like specifically Android feedback. This could be more of like just Trello in general. Maybe they're a web user, but this is legitimate, right? So the user wants to see all of their calendars in one space. I can understand why Trello wouldn't do that. Managing what events go on what calendar for multiple projects sounds kind of problematic. But I can also see from a user perspective why that's easier. So it's a balance between the two. I say we create a new issue for this. This is one we haven't seen before. We'll call this combine calendars. So I'm typing this into my backend, in my database. Combine calendars, let's be real. It's not a backend, it's a database. Combine calendars, and user wants all events on a single calendar. And I'll label this as combine calendars. So we'll go back to the review. We'll refresh this. And this is an interesting review because we haven't seen this before. So this is probably maybe a lower impactful request, but obviously the user's frustrated. Obviously, the Trello team, probably wants to think about from a product perspective or from a design perspective or UX, like, how do we satisfy this, right? In a really simple way without making it too complicated. Because Trello is all about simplicity. There's a bunch of crazy advanced tools that do something similar to Trello, but the reason people use Trello is because it is simple. And this is a 3-star review. So we'll go in and give it 2 stars, lost stars. So we took a look at maybe 5 reviews. We were pretty detailed. I like the comment about Asana. I will follow up in Reddit to find out a little bit more about that. And if anybody else has anything in the future that they want me to talk about, post in the Reddit channel. I'll add a link to this YouTube video. If anybody finds this YouTube video but hasn't been to the product management Reddit channel, or subreddit, not Reddit channel, they can comment there and we can get some back and forth going. But I'm very curious to see what you guys are interested in. Happy to show off other review tools and tools to read user feedback. I've used a lot of really great ones out there, and that could be an interesting show. But again, my name's Seb. We did this for 30 minutes today. I'll plan to continue doing this hopefully once a week. Wednesdays around lunchtime work well for me. But yeah, depending on what you have questions about and what you're interested in, I'm happy to modify and maybe even do more shows during the week. At this point, I'm just exploring and seeing what's out there and seeing what people are interested in. So thanks for joining, and look forward to talking at the same time in the same place. And I'll notify the Reddit channel again next week to see if there's any other feedback. Thanks.